So let's think about what it takes to innovate. You have to have imagination. You have to have some kind of vision around it, a level of support, and certainly the opportunity to innovate. And as a woman of color, I can tell you there's one more thing you need to have. You need to have resolve. You need to have the resolve to say, I will, because there is no shortage of people telling you, you can't. And I want to talk to you about that through the lens of my own personal story. This is my mom. She adopted me when I was a baby. She was a domestic worker. I watched her make a life for the two of us. She convinced the people that she worked with to let me go to nursery school. Think about that. A poor brown child going to nursery school with kids who typically will end up in boarding school. And think about what kind of experience that was for me. She gave me an amazing start in my life. Now, when I think about that, and I think about our conversations, she used to tell me I can be anything I want to be. And I believed her. All my aunts and uncles told me and my cousins, we can be anything we want to be, because they worked so hard to make that happen. But the I will quickly turned into you can't. The moment I left the comfort of our little block and entered into school, the you can'ts were all around me. The books that I read, the way the teachers connected with us or not, all of the media around us, which back then is not as much as it is now, but when you think about the magazines, when you think about all the things that said you as a brown child cannot do these things. And it became so pervasive that when I was 13 years old, when I was in 8th grade, I actually came home and told my mother, I'm not going to college. Okay, that's a big mistake. She didn't say a thing. Guess what I was doing that summer? I was working with her, cleaning toilets, vacuuming, cleaning people's bed sheets. She was letting me know that we're not doing you can't. You are doing I will. And that was very helpful for me. When I went to high school, I got tracked into the wrong math track. I should have been going into college prep. And I'm sitting in my math class and I'm looking at this algebra. That was the new math back then. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I've had this before. Maybe they're just kind of giving me review. And fortunately for me, my teacher realized that I was in the wrong spot. I should have been in honors. So he got together with another teacher and they helped get me on that right track. But what that meant was every single summer from that point on, all the way through college, I had to go to summer school, all to catch up, because I had people and the system tell me, you can't. Now, my senior year, we had a little devastating incident in my family. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a tough year for me, because that meant she couldn't work. She was very sick. I'm trying to be a teenager. I'm trying to finish school. I'm trying to take care of her. And all this is happening. Now, she died before I graduated high school, but she knew I was going to college. She knew where I was going. She knew it was paid for. So she died in peace. Now, those of you who are seniors or are going to be seniors, there's that day in June where you get your yearbook and you sign each other's yearbook and you're all excited, you know. So I take my yearbook and I take it around to my teachers. And then I get home and I read one of the entries. This is from my math teacher. Now, remember, I've had this very difficult year. And she wrote, "It was a pleasure having you in class, even though you weren't my best student. I hope you succeed in everything you do, except maybe math." And I'm thinking to myself, you know, is she joking? What is going on here? But then I didn't think of it anymore. I was young. You know, I thought she did it in jest. But as an adult, I see exactly what she was doing. She was giving me the you can't. You can't do this. You can't do that, because I said so. I ended up going to college, and I was the first female in my school to get a full ride basketball scholarship. It was the only way I could afford to go to school. I majored in computer science, and through those 4 years, what I did was I went to class, I went to practice, and I went to work. That was my whole 4 years. There were no internships, there were no mentors, there was nothing like that preparing me for my life after college. I graduated college totally unprepared for the real world. Ended up working at Computer Sciences Corporation, then I worked at Hughes Aircraft Corporation, and that's where I first met racism in my career. And fortunately, I was able to move on to another part of the company, and I found women who were ready to support me in my growth. And for the first time in my very short career, I felt like I can. Then I moved to San Francisco. I worked for a company teaching COBOL programming of all languages, the one I hated the most. But it was a job. That was the point. And from there, I went to a company called Fortune Systems. And there is where the I will started to come up, because they saw me as a colleague. They saw me as someone who brought a set of skills to the table. I had a great manager who developed me and made me believe that I can contribute, that I have some value to add, I can innovate. And I did. I created a lot of small little programs to help move our organization along. I started to define myself. I started to define who I am as a professional, who I am as a young black woman in this profession that's full of white men. I felt like I had a place. Then I moved to Seattle, worked for a little company called TEDx, and I was full of pride and full of confidence coming from San Francisco, coming into this company, and it just added to my confidence. I became a manager. I became someone who was directing other people. Again, I had a chance to innovate. I had a chance to create things. I was working side by side with smart people, and together we were pulling together these amazing little programs to do very cool things. And then I landed at Microsoft. And that was the one place where I really understood what innovation means, because I was at the point of innovation. I was at the company that was creating new technologies, that was creating Windows, of all things, and all these applications. And the expectation when you worked at Microsoft was that you were smart, that you would try things, that you can get the job done, and they would give you the resources to do it. As much as I felt like I can contribute, I also felt lonely. I got tired of being the only person of color in my programming department. And while I was at Microsoft, I got a chance to change that. I changed my career, moved into the diversity department, and my whole job was to create a pipeline of students of color and women to come into the company. And that's where I realized we had a challenge. We had a challenge with the number of people going into college. And you can't recruit from college and expect to get the numbers you want if you don't have the kids going into college that you need. So I started to run the high school internship program at Microsoft. And the intent was to get students of color in high school into the company, give them training, and give them an opportunity to be programmers. And it was a great program. And while I was there, I met these two guys. Now, they're old. They're men now. When I met them, they were 14 years old. They got tracked in the wrong math track. Almost 25 years later, from when that happened to me, that was still happening to kids like them. So we worked together to get them where they needed to go. And it turns out that they both went to college. They both graduated college, engineering students, pretty amazing men. But they needed a lot of support and intervention because they had a bunch of people telling them, you can't. So I felt like I had enough of that, that here was a chance we could do something to change that. So my partner, Jill, who is a social worker, she and I got together and we started thinking, what can we do to change this? So we just decided we're going to leave our jobs and we're going to create an organization to make sure that we don't have a bunch of Jonases and Stans coming up behind us, that we have kids that actually have an opportunity. So we started TAF. And the whole idea was to get kids in front of innovation, to get them to be innovators. In communities of color and low-income communities, we always get innovations last. And when we finally get them, everybody else has moved on to the next thing. And this was an opportunity to get these kids to a place where they can actually create and innovate. We started with a teen program. It's called the Technical Teens Internship Program. And we taught our kids everything from how to break down the computer, put it back together. Okay, that turned out to be a mistake because we actually used those computers later on and they didn't always work. But that's all right. It's all about learning. We taught them web development and programming. And at the end of their session, they got an opportunity for paid summer internships. This is a wildly popular program. But the most important thing was that we got a chance to show corporations that kids who look like me can also contribute and be successful. That when corporations complain, we can't find enough talent, we can say, well, you're looking in the wrong places. Come over here to our hood, because here's some really smart, talented kids that can come work for your companies, and one day they're going to start their own company and compete with you. You know, starting with high school is not the ideal time. Really getting kids when they were younger. So we worked with our middle school kids and then went all the way down to kindergarten. This young woman, she's in kindergarten here. She is now in 5th grade, and she's still working with us. And she's doing amazing things. She's building robots. She's writing little programs, all because she got the opportunity. We didn't do anything to make her any smarter than what she is. We gave her the opportunity to learn. So she's going to innovate a lot sooner, much like I think you heard Jessica Markowitz today. Young person, innovating. Young person, had opportunity, had a vision, had an idea. This young lady is going to do the same thing because she has opportunity. She has ideas. Then we started to look at our students and looked at their transcripts and what they were doing with us. And we noticed that their transcripts were not commensurate to their talent and to their ability. So we started thinking, is there something else we can do better? Now, we've already done a little bit of innovation by starting the company. We took another little leap by working with the younger kids. And now it's time for us to think of something even bigger. Can we actually start a school? As an organization that's running an after-school series of after-school programs, can we actually run a school? And I looked at the two people who have been with us the longest, Zithri and Sherry, and I said, if we go down this road, you're going to be jumping off a cliff with me with no parachute, and we don't know if there's a net at the bottom. Are you ready for this? This is truly innovation, mostly because we weren't going to do this on our own. We were talking about starting a public school, partnering with a public school district, when we, all this time, had been playing outside of the system. And we decided that we would go for it. So we spent 2 years finding out who are the best educators out there, who can help us pull this model together, who could be the ones that we can start with, what are the districts that could be interested. And we found Federal Way Public Schools. And what we ended up doing was creating something that has not been duplicated by anybody yet. We created a partner school where we had a public school that is co-managed by a nonprofit and a school district. All so that we can provide a better academic environment for low-income students and students of color. Also that we can get them to see that you don't have to be the only brown person in your class, the higher class. You don't have to be lonely. You don't have to have people tell you you can't. You can always know that you will, that you can, and you will get it done. That this is the place for you. This is your environment. And we wanted this to be a model that can be duplicated all over our state and eventually all over the country. So we opened the school in 2008. We had our first graduating class last year. amazing opportunities for our kids, internships, a lot of service learning, learning abroad, all the things that they could get if they were coming to a different type of school in a different type of neighborhood, just for them. It's an exciting time for me personally, an exciting time for our organization. And what I would tell you, at the age that you're at, you can innovate. You don't have to wait until you're my age, the ripe old age of 55. You can get out there and you can do it now. Don't be anybody else but you. What does somebody say? You can't be anybody else because they're already taken? And it's going to take you a while to figure out who you are. Show up as you are. The way you see me here today, if you came to my house or you came to my job or I came to your place, I'm the same Trish. I don't change. I am my authentic self every time. That way people know what they get. And it allows me the freedom to innovate and to create, because I don't have to worry about behaving one way in one environment and behaving another way in another environment. You get what you get. And as I tell my kids, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. This is it. All right? Use your imagination. Now, I can tell you, as an only child, my imagination just ran wild. And there were some times I thought it was kind of crazy. But as crazy as it may sound to you, go for it. Turn that imagination into a vision, right? The only reason why it may feel crazy is that you're paying attention to everybody else. Forget everybody else. Any kind of innovation that's worth anything came from somebody's imagination. And they stepped forward, and they got people to support it. Now, it doesn't mean that everything you imagine is a good thing, but it means that you should go and explore it, and you should try. And finally, I will say, make a difference in life. Don't innovate just for the sake of it. You know, innovation means to create something new, to change something. But change for the good. You all go to an amazing school here, and I know they teach you about being good to the community, about being good in the world. Use that. Innovate for good. Don't innovate for selfish reasons. And then I think that you will go forward and you will change our world, and we will all end up being very proud of you. Thank you very much.